Hey there, this is Natalie, back with more of the best stories from Reddit. Please give this video a like and gently caress the subscribe button if you enjoy these videos, and I'll keep them coming for you every day. Now here's a fully updated story that was originally posted to r/trueoffmychest by user ccan5697. And the original post is entitled, I think I'm going to have to end things with the man I love because I don't want kids. And OP begins. This might be long because I'm overwhelmed and can ramble, so I added a TLDR at the bottom. I'm sorry. My 30 female, boyfriend 34 male, and I have been together for the last 4 years. Our first date was basically our whole life stories and just talking about everything and anything, whether it be deep or not. I would say most of our relationship has been this way. Even when we fight, which has maybe happened a couple of times, we will take a break and regroup once emotions settle. When we disagree, we talk it through. He looks at me like I'm the most beautiful person he's ever seen. He constantly tells me how lucky he is to have me and how I deserve the world. We both love to cook and clean for the other person, so we always have different games set up, and the loser gets to relax while the winner gets to pamper the loser. I know it sounds weird, but it works for us. I love this man so much, and I know he loves me just as much. Now here's the problem. A couple of months into us dating, kids got brought up. Communication is super important to me and him, so I told him I didn't want kids. He thought I was joking because all my friends and siblings have kids at this point, and I'm the fun Tia, auntie. I even put together parties for the kids and fun themed days when I'm having one-on-one time with them. I do love kids, but I don't want any of my own. I explained that and he said, well, maybe you haven't met the right guy. I had to sit him down and explain that while I do believe people can change, he could not be with me expecting my opinion about kids to change. He needs to take my not wanting kids at face value instead of hoping that I'll change my mind. Because what if I don't change my mind? I asked him to think it through for a week or two, and then we can circle back to the topic, because at this point we are thinking about being official. But if kids were that important to him, then we needed to stop now before it gets much harder down the line. He told me later that kids are not that important to him and that he can see a future without kids in it. Fast forward to a month ago. His parents and some extended family were visiting my boyfriend's brother's wedding. We're in the US and his family is from Eastern Europe. I'd always gotten along with his parents and his brother and brother's now wife. His parents will visit a couple of times a year and have always been so kind and thoughtful. At the wedding reception, I was being introduced to all of the family. Eventually, some asked when my boyfriend and I were getting married, and my boyfriend just winked at the question because he knew I already knew that he was planning to propose soon. He just asked way too many ring-related questions since he knows I hate diamonds, but wasn't sure the direction he would go in since I barely wear rings. He could propose to me with a ring pop for all I care. Later, at one point, one of his cousins asked how I would feel about my future kid learning their native language, to which I responded, oh, I don't want kids, but I'm actually learning the language myself. There were a few members of the family around, including my boyfriend's parents. No boyfriend though, and they all gave me the "what the hell are you saying" look. I didn't understand why I was getting that look, so I just awkwardly laughed and asked everyone not to tell my boyfriend I was learning the language because I wanted to surprise him. I thought it would be cute to respond to his proposal in his native language. I went looking for my boyfriend and found his brother and the bride instead. We were talking and eventually I asked, hey, is it weird in your culture to not have kids? Because I got weird looks from your parents when I said I don't want kids. His brother proceeds to tell me that it's not weird, but that my boyfriend has always wanted to have kids, so it probably shocked their parents to hear that I didn't want them. Apparently my boyfriend always wanted at least 3 kids, and he'd always been super excited about the idea of having them. I think his brother noticed the look on my face and backtracked a bit, saying something like, wait, frick, it's not a big deal. He changed his mind because he loves you more than the idea of having kids. On the ride back home with my boyfriend, I asked my boyfriend if he's really okay about not having kids. He sighed because apparently he'd heard from his parents about what I said. He apologised about it and that he did stop talking about kids since we've been together, but that his parents had always assumed we would have them. He also sometimes wonders if I will change my mind, but he doesn't think I ever will. He said that when we talked about this while we were dating, he could imagine a future without kids because he couldn't imagine a future without me. It's been a month since the wedding, but I've started to notice little things with my boyfriend. A lot of our friends have kids, and I'm always letting my friends know that they can bring their kids over instead of having to find a babysitter. I've noticed that my boyfriend looks slightly envious when he sees our friends interact with their kids. Or sometimes I see him look slightly dejected when he sees a family with a bunch of kids. Maybe this is in my head now that I know that he's always wanted to be a dad until he met me. Maybe it's not in my head. I truly want him to be happy, but I know I don't want to be a mom. I wish I felt different, and I wish I could compromise this for him, but I would never want to bring kids into this world knowing I don't want them. That's not fair to the kid. And if him being happy means he finds someone else to have kids with, I'll have to live with that. He knows something is wrong because he said I feel far away lately. I think he knows why. I know I have to sit down with him and fully talk this out. Part of me feels like this conversation will lead to us breaking up because he really, truly does want kids. I'm also worried that if he stays with me, he might resent me for not wanting kids like him. I just feel terrible. TLDR, when my boyfriend and I started dating, I told him I don't want kids, and he said he was okay with it. 4 years later, I found out that he's always wanted to be a dad from his family, and now I'm thinking that I can't truly make him happy wanting to live a child-free life. So I need to have a conversation, and I'm feeling terrible because there is a good chance we might break up over this. Oh, I can almost feel the people in the comments coming in saying that she's selfish for not giving him children and blah blah blah. She should change her mind, it's wrong for women to not want children. Yeah. Because I've heard all of that myself, because I'm also a woman who doesn't want kids. I don't hate kids. I just have never, even when I was a child myself, been able to envisage myself being a mother. It was always to me something that happened to other people and not a lifestyle I could imagine for myself, you know? Like, it's not that I hate people who are in the military, but I can't imagine ever wanting to be in the military myself. It's that sort of thing. It's a life choice and it's a perfectly valid one. I respect other people who do it. I have nothing against people with children, but I just can't, you know? It just doesn't factor into the realm of things that I ever saw as possible for me to be doing. And people like that are not that rare. You know, people make out that the women who don't want children and aren't looking to change their mind about that when they meet the right man or whatever, because honestly, the right man for someone who doesn't want children is a man who doesn't want children. But people make out that it's all about, you know, you want to have a big career or you want to spend all your money on traveling or something like that, as if you've chosen one life over the life of being a mother. And for some people it might be that. For some people it might be a financial choice. But for others, it's just not there. You know, the drive to have children is just not there. It's inconceivable to you, you know? Kind of like you can't help it if you're gay. And it's not necessarily unnatural that some people would be predisposed to not reproducing. If you think that humans used to live in small communities and a very quick boom in population among those communities would lead to problems with resources. This obviously isn't an issue now, as we live in larger communities that can sustain that kind of thing. But if you were part of a small nomadic tribe, and every woman had as many children as it's physically possible to have in her lifetime, the population would soon exceed what it would be able to sustain. And some people put that forward as a reason why some people are naturally gay or asexual, so no drive to do the act that would cause them to reproduce with someone they can reproduce with. And I reckon it could also be why some people just don't have the instinct to want to have children, even if they're kind of cool with the sex part, you know. And as time has gone on and women have actually had the freedom to choose whether they get to be mothers or not, without having to, say, become a nun or something just to not be expected to do it, it's something more people talk about as a lifestyle that's perfectly reasonable for someone to want to live. but people have to make it political and make it be about not having, traditional values or having some kind of nihilistic desire for the population to decline into extinction. In reality, it's not really about anything like that. If you look at child-free type forums and stuff, most of the women on there, because while there are also a lot of men who want to be child-free, it's not really kind of stigmatized as much for men. The women do tend to talk more of just having never wanted kids, rather than having made that decision based on the fact that they can do things in their life that they don't think they'd be able to do if they were a mother, or they'd have more money, or they believe it's better for the environment, or anything like that. Certainly some people do weigh things up and make those kind of decisions on a practical basis, and that's fine too. But those people's minds could be changed if their circumstances were changed. If it was financially easier for them to support a family, then perhaps they would want one. For people like me, and presumably OP here, there's really no amount of money that would make me feel happy and enthusiastic about the idea of having to have and raise children. I'm sorry to ramble on about that, it is a topic close to my heart, and I'm also hoping that listening to the rest of this story might give people a bit of a perspective on how these kinds of relationships can work out. Because I do see people taking very, very shallow takes on these kinds of choices a lot, especially on Twitter, and also making the assumption that just because they feel the instinctive and inherent desire to have children, every other woman does, and every other man does, and every other man isn't willing to envisage a future with a woman who doesn't want to give him children. That's not how people work, we're all different. Still, there are some relevant comments before we get to the updates. The first one is from Responsible Fun 670, who says, "The kid/no kid issue is very real and can cause incompatibility. I think you really need to press your boyfriend on this issue. Maybe take a 2 to 3 week break from him so he can experience life without you, to judge for himself, should he stay with you or move on to find someone else who wants children. In the end though, you can only listen to his words, watch his actions and probe his emotions after he sees other children or family. If he reassures you and you still have doubts, then a breakup may be the best option." I don't really agree with this commenter. I would say that if he reassures her, but she still has doubts just based on noticing him around children, a lot of noticing things is often just that we see things that confirm what we're already worried about. And if he insists that he has no doubts, then not listening to him and trusting him on that would be just as bad as him not listening to her and assuming she'll change her mind about kids. All he can do, if he is willing to enter this relationship without there being kids in the plan, is assure her that that's his decision and he's okay with it. He can't do any more than that. And she has done the right thing and made it clear to him that he has the opportunity here at this moment to make the decision to end things, before they get married, before anything even more serious happens between them. If his desire to have kids is more than just, how he expected his life to be and maybe fantasized about when he was a kid, and is actually something he needs to be happy, that's something only he can answer. And she is trying to communicate with him and, give him the space to make that choice. But when he does make his choice and gives her his answer, all she can do is take his answer at face value and believe him, just like she asked him to do around her never changing her mind. But still, we have the first update. And she says, 2 days after my original post, my boyfriend and I sat down to talk finally. As I suspected, he knew exactly what had been bugging me, but he didn't want to push me to have the conversation before I was ready. He started it off with why he's okay with not having kids. He grew up with his parents and brother. He saw the joy that his parents got from raising the two of them, but he also saw how unhappy they were in their marriage. Yes, they're still together, but they're more like co-parents/roommates than an actual couple. My husband was very cynical when it came to relationships growing up, because he felt like he never saw enough happy couples. His parents weren't happy, His friends were in and out of relationships. He was in and out of relationships. In his head, kids would bring him and his partner happiness and purpose in a relationship. Yes, he admitted to the absolute insanity that was his thinking, but when we started dating, he realised this and started going to therapy to help him work these feelings out. He's been in therapy ever since. He said when he met me, I changed everything for him, and that he knew on our second date that he was going to marry me. So, when months later I mentioned I didn't want kids, he was disappointed, but the main reason was because the idea of having little versions of me running around was something he'd thought about for the months we were dating. And yes, he meant it when he said he could see a future without kids, but couldn't see a future without me. It's why he'd been super supportive about me looking into surgeries to prevent kids being a possibility for me. It's why he never even brings up the possibility of either one of us changing our minds. I asked if he was jealous of our friends with kids, and he laughed. He said that when he sees a family or sees our friends with their kids, he can see that the relationship between a parent and child is special. But the freedom that we have in our relationship, along with the extra funds we have for ourselves, far outweigh his past feelings about being a dad. He said that I was his family, and if I didn't want to increase the size of our family, then he has no problems with that, because he's already so happy. He finally found the love of his life, which he thought would never happen, so he doesn't want to mess with something that is perfect. He just never brought it up with his family, and was slightly concerned that they would try to pressure us. Kids are a big thing in his family. His brother already knew, and obviously had no problems with it. He said he had a talk with his parents and the relatives he was closest to about it. His parents are not exactly happy, but my boyfriend admitted to me that he lied to them and said he was the one who didn't want kids first. He just wasn't sure what their reaction would be and didn't want me to deal with any negative backlash. He said if I ever feel pressurized about anything ever, whether it be by him or his family or even my family, to let him know, because we're partners and we work through these things together. He isn't afraid of going no contact with anyone who makes a big deal about something that isn't any of their business. I told him that my main concern was that he was putting my happiness over his, because he has a tendency to do that with people he loves, and I didn't want him to regret anything later down the line. He said he understood my concern, but that he swore up and down that these 4 years have been the happiest of his life, and the fact I was so stressed about whether he was happy or not is further proof that we're meant for each other, because I also have a tendency to put his happiness over my own, LOL. He then proposed to me with the original ring he bought the first year we were together. I didn't even know he'd brought a ring before. He said he would have done it the first year, but I'd made a comment that I wanted to wait at least 3 years before getting engaged, and now he's making significantly more money, so he's been looking to go all out on a new ring. But I really love the ring he originally bought. It isn't big or flashy, but it's a very unique design that is subtle and beautiful. The colour is also the same colour as my boyfriend's eyes, and I'm always gushing about them. He has the kindest eyes. So I told him there is no point in looking for another ring because this one was already perfect. TLDR, boyfriend assured me that he's happy not having kids and loves me, so we didn't break up and we're now engaged. Thanks to everyone who reached out and all the advice. This community really helped. So they did manage to solve this issue, at least for the time being, and got engaged. But there are a couple more updates, and these are where it gets really wholesome. So I hope you like those kind of stories where it starts off sounding like a couple might break up over something really sad that, isn't really either of them's fault, but then communication wins out, everything turns out great, and you finally get some stories of their lovely happy lives together. So that's what we're going into now, because a few months later, OP returns. And this post is entitled, I Feel Like I'm Going to Crack. And she says, my fiancé and I recently got engaged not long ago. While we were making plans, deciding on rings and so on, the proposal was very spontaneous and happened months before my fiancé had originally planned. I also originally planned to accept his proposal in his native language. However, due to events that led up to the proposal, I forgot. So I decided I would just keep taking classes, and his brother or his brother's wife will only converse with me in Polish when my fiancé isn't around. Then I would surprise my fiancé by giving my vows in Polish. The problem? My fiancé doesn't know I now understand a lot of the conversations he's having with his family and some of his friends, because I have to pretend I don't understand. This has been going on for months, even before he proposed. I feel like I'm invading his privacy, because now I know. He's been planning to surprise me with his originally planned proposal, but now it's just an over-the-top engagement party. He once told his mom he missed her sauerkraut soup, so for the 4, almost 5 years we've been together, I make this dish a handful of times a year during fall or winter for him. I had called his mom up for the specific recipe too. Turns out, he has always hated it. But it reminds him of home and his mom, and he sees how happy I get to make this for him, so he just eats it. Like I make a big pot only for him to eat, and I don't like sauerkraut. Now it makes sense why he always sends half of it to his brother and sister-in-law, who live walking distance from us. He's been hiding my favourite candies around the house for the last 2 years. I'll find my favourite candies in places I was surprised to find them, like a random drawer here or a shelf there. Like I get so happy and will run to him in my excitement about these random candies I must have forgotten about. Nope, he just buys bags of them and will place them in spots randomly. He just loves how excited I get. I caught him telling his brother when his brother found one of them going through one of our kitchen drawers. His brother thought the whole situation was hilarious because he's in on the fact that I understood the whole exchange. He has my period in his calendar so that he can be extra mindful and get me my favourite things during the week to help keep my mood up. He's always known that I lied about being a morning person. I said that when we first started dating because he always went to the gym in the morning and wouldn't invite me to go with him. 4 or 5 years later, we still go to the gym together, and while getting up at 5 a.m. is still a pain for me, it's worth spending that extra time with him, especially since we're both busy people. Turns out, if I fall asleep before him, he has trouble sleeping. I snore. I've tried everything. He's never once complained to me about it, but I still use nasal strips and have a special pillow that I thought helped. However, apparently if I fall asleep after him, he can just sleep through it because he's a heavy sleeper. So now I make a point to sleep after him. He hasn't caught on yet, I think. The last thing is something that he's told anyone who will listen. His parents, his uncles, his aunts, his brother's wife, his friends in Poland. Anyone and everyone who speaks Polish. If I'm in the room and he's on the phone with them, he'll always look at me with a crazy big smile and tell them that he cannot wait to marry me. Ugh, I love the man so much. I don't think I can keep this charade up for a year. We're planning for a 2024 wedding. I'm not good at pretending. I can't keep hiding my face or running out of the room when he's talking to family/friends. And my birthday will be coming up in a few months, so I know he'll be planning something and probably think it's safe to talk about it with some people in Polish. I'm going to crack soon, I can feel it. This is kind of an interesting problem to have, isn't it? Because you start out learning the language as a surprise and thinking that's only going to be a cute thing that gets a good reaction. But as time goes on, you probably would start to know things you weren't supposed to know and feel like you were eavesdropping. And it's going to reach a point, potentially, where the other person is going to be angry at you for not telling them sooner that you understood all those conversations that they thought were private. I think it's probably for the best if she does crack soon and find another cute moment to reveal that she can speak Polish rather than letting this go on for another year. I do think it's so cute how much they consider each other though. This is such a nice couple. And of course, there is a final update, so we do get to find out what happened regarding the whole secretly speaking Polish thing. So she starts, I did end up cracking. My fiancé threw that surprise engagement party for us that I found out about since I've been learning his native language. It was beautiful and sweet, and he flew his family and my family out to be there as well. We did a toast during the dinner portion of the party, and I decided to do my portion of the post in Polish, as suggested by a comment on my last post. I explained in my toast that I wanted my learning Polish to be a surprise for the proposal, but since that didn't work out, I wanted it to be a surprise for my wedding vows. However, I didn't count on the fact that I would be unintentionally eavesdropping on his conversations, and what was supposed to be a surprise engagement party for me was spoiled by me. I also went on to talk about the sweet things I found out through my eavesdropping, excluding the bit about the sauerkraut soup, because his mum was there and I will take that to my grave. And how it only further proved to me that I made the right choice by saying yes to his proposal, and that while I don't think anyone is ever really perfect, I do know that he is perfect for me. My Polish wasn't perfect, and thankfully my future brother-in-law translated everything to my side of the family. I asked him to early on. Now comes the absolute shock of the year. I don't know if I mentioned this in any of my posts because there was no reason to at the time, but I'm mixed, Black/Latina. So a big chunk of my family speaks Spanish, myself included. Granted, I do usually speak English with my family and not often Spanish, but my maternal grandparents who were at the engagement party do only speak Spanish. I'm pretty sure you know where I'm going with this. After I was done with my toast, I looked over at my fiancé who had tears in his eyes, and he freaking responded to my toast in Spanish. Turns out he was learning Spanish for the last year and wanted to surprise me on our wedding day. While I don't speak Spanish as often as he speaks Polish, so no secrets were spoiled on my end, he wanted me to know that he embraced every part of my life and just wanted to prove that to me by learning Spanish. There were a lot of laughs and tears shed, and both of our families made it a point to learn simple phrases in the other's language, so that was really cute to see. All in all, I'm still planning to do my vows in Polish, and he plans to do his vows in Spanish and English, since half my family only speaks English. I'm happy I'm not eavesdropping anymore, because I did not enjoy invading his privacy, despite the sweet things I did end up learning. So that's that. I'm just very excited to spend the rest of my life with this man. So this couple has restored my faith in humanity until the next story. And I know the next one I'm going to record is, so I'm pretty sure my faith in humanity will not last an awful lot longer. So enjoy this moment, enjoy this lovely relationship, because the next video will probably be something horrible and shocking. What do you guys all think of this story? One thing I really like about it is, these secondary parts that talk about, their engagement party, their families all getting together, them speaking each other's languages, all that really sweet stuff that shows how much they care about each other. It really kind of proves to me that it's not wild to think that people who don't want children, don't want to start a family, might still get a lot of benefit from being in a relationship, from getting married, all of that stuff. I see so many people say, oh, what's even the point in getting married if you don't want to have children? Or of being in a long-term relationship and living together, what's the point in any of it if it isn't to start a family? But just like these people, people can have wonderful, happy, wholesome lives together, just being their best selves and being around the family they already have. And, sometimes old people get married. Maybe people whose first wife or husband died, or who just didn't meet the right person till later in life. I think that we should just stop judging what the purposes of people being together is, and just be glad when they're happy and treating each other right. But that's just me waffling, because, this would be exactly the type of relationship I would want. So I'm really happy for OP for finding it. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you so much for listening to these stories. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for more. And please let me know what you think of this video's stories down below.